And joining us now is your champ, the leaderboard number one from Chapter 1, GMAN himself. Welcome, GMAN, and congratulations on your fantastic performance.
Thank you, Abdul. Thanks for having me.
So, how do you feel about your performance there? We were talking about how you practiced, and this was actual run wound up a quarter second faster than your previous runs.
Yeah. I was really happy with the way it turned out, because it's a tricky track to practice. It's a tricky track to like optimize. It's so fast, and then it's like 2 laps around the same circuit, but in like a different order. So you have to remember what part of the run you're on, so you don't do the chicane. When you're. So every time I go around, I would say to myself, okay, chicane, and then I'd be like straight through. And so. I honestly, it was, and when I got my personal best, it was during an attempt, and it was on a second attempt, and I kind of had just like forgotten about any pressure. I just kind of was like, just send it, and I didn't expect such a increase in or such a cut of time. Like, I really thought that I would get a marginal increase at best, because I was really getting a lot of times close to my PB. And so my PB in practice was like a 0.400, and I ended up with a 0.146, I think, or 0.16.
Just about, 26.1, I believe, was where you were on.
Yeah, so over a quarter second faster, which was, as soon as it got done, I was like, yeah, I guess that was clean. It's funny how when it's really clean, sometimes it feels slower, because you're not spazzing out the whole time.
Top Gear and the reasonably priced car challenge has certainly taught us that hey, if it looks slower, it's probably much faster. And I think a lot of intermediate and even advanced pilots are going to take a lot of heart from you sharing that you, even at the top of the leaderboard, it's hard to remember when the chicane is happening and when the straight through is happening. So that's certainly something that's going to give a lot of people a lot of heart. How did you prepare yourself for this massive run, G-Man?
Well, so I tried to get, do a short session, get comfortable on the track, get up to speed, and then I try to not waste a good run, right? And I didn't throw down a ton of attempts. I'd be curious to know how many I actually did, if that data's out there. But in the end, the day or two leading up to that run, I had thrown away, had pretty big failures on the runs when I usually had improved. So this time I was like, I didn't want to, basically what had happened before that is I had gotten a good time, like a PB or nearly a PB, and then immediately after I go to set a time. And it's hard to get great runs back to back. And so this time when I got that run, I was like failing to finish a couple runs, but I knew they were clean, and I was like, I felt a good one coming on, and I was like, whatever, I got stuff to do today. So I just went into the attempts, and in the end, I was right. I screwed up my first run. I think I crashed like right away or on like the second turn, and or maybe even on the launch. And I was just like, well, here we go. And then I kind of just didn't sweat it, let it get off my thing. And then on lap 3, I tried to not even think about what lap I was on. I tried to get lost in just running it fast, because there's no time for caution to beat Finzi here. He was breathing down my neck. We were going back and forward, and then the days after I improved my time, he improved his time faster than my previous time. So it was do or die. So yeah.
That is massive. So there's a racer's flow state that you were trying to access there, and in that state, when we talked about this on the Liftoff live stream a while ago when you were a guest of ours, that there has to be a point where you throw caution to the wind, and you just gotta go for it.
Yep. And in live racing it's a little different, right? Like you gotta find that optimal point of caution, right? What's the right amount of holding back that I can do right now? Because everybody has to some extent. Ideally you're not, but in a time trial event like this, at the end of it really I knew I was capable of faster time based on how I had reviewed my best time I set, and I was way ahead by about a quarter second almost, or 0.2 probably, going into lap 3, and then I blow it all on lap 3 with a slow chicane. Yeah, and I knew I just had taken it kind of safe, and Finzi literally almost catches me. Like, you see him come just blast out of nowhere and almost gets me. But then during practice, I had a hard time staying ahead of myself. And honestly, the other thing I did is I stopped practicing with replays on with Ghost, because I just started. I knew that when I was setting my time, I'd be setting it on an empty course. So I started trying to just get in the zone where I had no gauge whether or not I was ahead or behind, which also so that when I'm in the attempt, it doesn't feel different. It just feels like another,
That sounds like a real master tip for getting yourself zoned in and practicing precisely the mindset that you'll need on race day. Like, you find out exactly what you need to do, recreate that, and boom, get it done.
It's huge, especially in this format, because you go into the attempt and you exit out of practice, you go in, you load, and I always make sure my throttle's up so that I don't just launch right away, so like the game will wait, and then I can take a breath and I launch, and inevitably it feels different. You feel the pressure, you feel like, for the most part, I deal with it, but sometimes I absolutely just launch. Like, I go to launch and I end up like way higher than I was expecting. I'm just like, what am I doing? I haven't launched like that a single time in practice, and then suddenly I'm, so I'm sure everybody deals with that.
That's exactly what I was about to ask you for, because when we went through the review of your run in detail, you have a much higher launch than anyone in your bracket, or even people in lower brackets. You really pop up off the line. And when you started the race, you started at the very back of the pack. You made up 2 positions in turn 1. Until turn 4, Finzi and you were trading. But after turn 4, you kept what was very interesting was you kept the same amount of space from turn 4, lap 1, to the end of the race. Finzi wasn't really able to close that gap, and you weren't really able to appreciably pull away. So with that in mind, do you think you're going to make any changes to your startup strategy for the next track?
I think that for me, this is racers always say, and especially with limited attempts, but in real racing, like, you don't win the race in the first on the first corner,
Yes,
and
sir.
so, like, usually when I'm time trialing for single laps, I'll set myself up to come in turning right into the track at maximum speed. And in this case, I think one of the reasons I was launching a little higher is because I had thrown away a few attempts just to being weird on the launch. So I tried to find a very consistent, comfortable launch I could do that really, what was important to me was carrying my momentum into that first straightaway and taking that first turn kind of as optimally as possible. And as the race goes on, I started cutting that flag even tighter. And the absolute best line actually is inside of that flag, because the trigger overhangs it a little bit. So on my open class record run, I actually hit it like inside, like, it's kind of nuts. I do it a few times in that race too. It's unfortunate because when you slow down the replay to like 25%, the way it's recorded in the system, it has a little bit of like, it's not updating fast enough, I think, so the interpolation shows like kind of a jumpiness.
Yeah.
So I wish I would have recorded the actual run, but I didn't. I do have a recording of my open class record though that you could look at.
We did see you shared your stick, and this was what I felt was a truly champ move. You shared your stick cam.
That was kind of I kind of thought that was more of a troll. Like, this is how I did it.
Well, it genuinely was. All anyone has to do is follow that line and just keep this stick all the way up there.
Nice and I come off the throttle like maybe to 95%, like 2 or 3 times through the run, and other than that, I'm just smooth on my right stick. And you see, I'm almost every major turn, I'm full stick. And the only time I'm full stick left is in the chicane. And really, the first optimization that I did that first left me ahead, and then other people caught on. I'm not sure if other people were doing it. Was sneaking through the the battery recharge.
Yeah. That was a strategy we saw pretty standard through the top 10, where everyone was making sure to go just a touch wide and clip that little bit of battery bit, and then people had trouble. Then a couple of people lost what I feel were really good runs because they went too wide into that turn run after having touched up the battery.
That makes sense.
I think in your last lap though, you avoided the battery charge up in your very last lap, because that was also where you took it tightest and like right on top of the flag.
I mean, I'll be honest, I was very traumatized by getting that. Like for a while, that was the spot where I lost most of my runs. Not necessarily attempts, but in fast practice runs. And so at that point in my attempt, I was just trying to have a clear head, and I was like, don't hit, because there's those little signs, and it's very easy to miss the one gate too if you go too far over. So the other thing that happened to me a lot was I would take the flag too tight in the chicane at the back end, and that trigger doesn't seem to be as tight to it, so I could go too tight, or maybe I was just missing it, coming in, because you can go past the pole but not past the flag. And so I would kill a lot of runs that way. But I try not to over grind any, especially a short track like that. These days I've grown out of the multi-hour session on a single track like that. I would get warmed up for like 20 to 30 minutes, make sure I get back up to speed and I'm feeling good, get a couple near PBs in, and then send it for attempts. And then after I got that run, I knew it was really strong, and I was pretty confident that it would be tough for people to catch me, so I kind of just stopped. I didn't try and beat myself at that point. I just focused on the future. And now with the next track, it's very different. It's a killer track in the sense that
it's got constant traps everywhere throughout. There's a gut check.
Exactly. It's not that technical, and some of the spots you really want to do at high speed, but it's a fun track in the sense that you really aren't going to be full throttle everywhere. Like I think I could throttle cap myself and still get a P1 time right now. But because it would help me be disciplined in a couple of the spots that are really hard. But it would be tough because Finzi is doing like a very full throttle line right now. I've observed his line already, and I've already practiced against him a little bit. I did one set of 4 attempts when it was like late night, but I haven't tried to set times yet. But I'm pretty confident I can put in I'm interested to see how much tighter Finzi can go, because I'm flying that track very tight. We don't know if you noticed, but today Finzi put up a new, took the number 1 spot earlier today with a time which is almost 20 seconds faster than the number 2 time. For sure. 39. Yeah, that's the time I've been observing. If you watch it though, he's very wide go on the truck. When you go through the first, like every single turn can be optimized almost for him.
You can see him being conservative and just kind of feeling it out right now. Yeah. So Finzi, you feel breathing down your neck. Are there any other pilots that you're also watching for Chapter 2?
Oh yeah, I'll be honest. I think my biggest fear is Depaka. And there's a handful. There's a handful of other pilots who I think could show up and throw down if they came over, but they're not regular liftoff pilots. Finzi, I think, can do it for sure. We'll see how much faster we get. I've got a pretty busy month, so hopefully I'm probably not gonna set a time today, but I'll try and work on one tomorrow, and then I'm on a shoot for a day and a busy weekend. So, but we'll get to it at the end of the month. Part of me doesn't want to show my lines because it wasn't until I showed my lines on Discard that people started. It's not that they copy or anything like that, but it just shows. It's almost more like a mental game where once you know what's possible, you'll level up to that. And so I'm not trying to swoop in at the end because I definitely don't have enough confidence in that track at that speed yet. Like I tried to do that. I tried to run it as fast as I run it. Like my PB lap is like 11 seconds on that track, which is pretty fast. Um, but
That
not in the battery sim quad though. It would be more
uh,
like a 12, I think. Um, 12 or 13. But it's hard to keep that up, for 3 laps. Like taking all those spots tight, like
yeah.
the little dive gate and stuff. But yeah, we'll have to talk about that track, win or lose, either way, because it's an interesting. It's a more compelling track to race, but it's also I would prefer something a little more technical and a little more forgiving with like the traps. Like the one turn going through the tent
Oh
is
yeah.
yeah, it's very like it's blind. You
Yeah.
gotta feel the line, and Finzi is taking it wide, lining it up, and then shooting
Yeah.
through it at full throttle, and it's
Hmm.
working for him. And like yeah, if I can't get it together and do it the way I want to, like I'm gonna have to pull that line too. But
Well, we got
we'll see.
3 weeks to go for chapter
Yep.
number 2 on our way to getting someone a real world D Quad sponsorship
Yep.
as a real world pilot. I hope that you enjoy that D Quad fixation frame that's heading your way, brother G Man. Congratulations again on your great victory. All the best for chapter 2, and thank you so much for taking out time to talk with us.
My pleasure. Yeah, and I've been using the fixation to fly, so currently it's the best quad in the game. So
Oh, we will find that moment in the clip and we'll clip that. Have a fantastic day, G man. See you soon,
thanks,
brother.
bud. See ya. Thanks, Abdul.